This episode of UDSP is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial, head on over to audible.com/GameBreaker and get your free book on, too. Internet, and welcome to episode 37 of UDSP here on GameBreaker TV for March 5th, 2014. If you're watching this live, you're probably a little confused about the time, and that's okay. New time is Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, so this time, every week, we'll be bringing you UDSP. Also, with me today, you know him, you love him, he's here every week, Farhad Siddiqui.
Hey guys.
Oh, yeah.
Hey chat room, everyone. Yep, UDSP is
back.
back.
Spreadsheets.
We got spreadsheets. Now I've got spreadsheets.
We're not allowed to do spreadsheets today because also on the line, Mr. Gary Gannon. How are you, sir?
Hello, Mr. Byrne and Mr. Farhan and the chat room. Hello.
It's odd having you in the frame down here. I'm not used to this.
It is. It's odd. It's odd being part of the show and not really running the show.
Right, not having to click on anything.
Just not used to this. It's kind of nice. I kind of like this.
Don't get used to it, man. Don't get used to that. You can't always do this. Gary, you're here. You wanted to chat with GameBreaker Nation a little bit. We haven't done UDSP schedule-wise. It's been weird, so let's regroup and talk to the nation a little bit.
So regrouping a couple different things. One, obviously, UDSP hosting is being taken over by the Mr. Byrne right here, passing the torch. So he will be your new host. And I think, like you said at the top of the show, the new day and time is going to be Wednesdays at 4. It's a better time for you guys, right? I mean, it seems like the WildStar peeps love to drop stuff on Tuesdays, and they drop all this news, and then
we've had the WildStar Wednesday forever, so
right.
Yeah, so
had to wait
like
6 days to cover the stuff that already happened.
Yeah, so it seems like a better day. So mark that down on your calendar. That's a new day for the show. But why I'm here today is something else, and I'm going to try and make this pretty short. But GameBreaker is in a bit of trouble financially, and we need your help. As a startup, you know, there's many hurdles to go through, and there's lots of challenges to create a successful company, especially on the internet, especially in publishing, especially creating a podcast net, starting out as solely as a podcast network. I can go on and on how I don't know, insanity of doing that. But with that being said, we need your help. We need the community's help at this point. So we are very close to closing our doors. And yesterday we launched a Help Save GameBreaker campaign. The response in the past 24 hours has been absolutely unbelievable. Like I'm speechless to how much the community has come to our aid right now when we need it. I've never wanted to get to this point. I've never wanted to actually kind of come to the point and ask the community for help. But it's just one of those things of a startup company and you know, not having some major VC backing. We don't have millions of dollars. We're not owned by AOL. We're not owned by Tencent or CBS or anything like that. I started this company literally out of my dining room and grew it from there. And over the course of, I mean, that was 4 or 5 years ago when it really started. Really started kicking into high gear about 2 years ago. And we've done a lot. We've grown so much, and the community is amazing, and just the amount of people that come to the website now is just incredible. But in the advertising business and the publishing business, which is essentially what we do, there are hard times. There are hard times, and we've hit one. And we've fallen a little bit behind on just a few bills. We're not in like any kind of like major crazy debt, but we do have some bills that we're behind, and some of our writers are a little bit behind on payment, things like that. And it's not fair to them, and it's incredibly stressful. compounded with a bunch of other things I'm going to be talking about over the next month. So we decided to launch this campaign, and we're asking for any of you, if you can, to please help us and donate. So if you've liked any of our shows, UDSP or anything else, Legendary, the website, if you found value in what we do, if we've made you laugh, if we've made you angry, whatever, if you enjoy coming here and like what we do, please, I hope you can donate. So you can go to GameBreaker.tv/donate. I'll put it in the chat room as well so you guys can see it. Or you can go to, which we've been drawing more people to, it's GoFundMe.com/GameBreaker. That is where the bulk of, we're sending people over there. It's amazing. As we're doing this right now, we have a goal of $100,000 that we're trying to raise. As of right now, on the GoFundMe, which is not all of it actually, it's at $12,377. It's amazing. There's actually, I haven't checked, but there's some people donating through PayPal as well, which doesn't reflect on here. They don't accept PayPal payments, but we're doing updates to let everybody know how much is coming in there as well. I think last we checked was a couple thousand on PayPal as well. So I think we're in like the $17,000 range right now that we've raised in less than 24 hours. So that's amazing. I'm floored. I'm completely floored that the community has come to our aid, and we want to see this thing keep going. We love doing these shows. And Mike Byrne loves doing these shows. He's just started hosting. He doesn't want to get kicked out. We all love doing what we do. We love getting up every day. We love covering the news. We have a great team of people behind the scenes working on this. We're super passionate about gaming and what we do, and it's quite amazing. But it's just one of those times that we need to ask for help. So we're asking for your help. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna let you guys go do a UDSP and have fun and talk about some MMO stuff. And we will keep doing updates, and we'll keep letting the community know about our progress. And I'm also going to be adding in some other things where I can answer questions from the community, because I know some of you have a lot of questions about what's going on, and we're figuring out right now how to kind of like handle all that. So expect that to come in the near future as well. So that's it.
Sweet. Thank you, sir. That's amazing what the community's done.
Have
so
a great
far.
show. Talk about some WildStar.
Oh, yes.
And everybody's so freaking excited. I'm disappointed Farhan doesn't have spreadsheets or graphs and charts.
Well, the rumor was that you were going to be in here for a little bit, so he hid them.
Oh, so he hides them.
He hides them.
Yeah, he saves them.
The last time I guest hosted, we snuck them in, and you turned out to be in the damn chat room.
There you go.
Like, what is this? Charts.
I won't come back next week. I promise. I can't promise that. I might come back next week. All right. Have a great show, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Which one is here? Yep. There we go. Okay. Great. Let's move me and you down. Just Farhan and I this week. Mr. Mark Taylor will be back next week. Got a little bit delayed today. We love you. We'll see you next week, Guild Umbra. So let's move on. Today we're going to talk about new and revamped UIs. Lots of information on adventures to discuss, as that's been trickling out for the last 2 weeks. Even the possibility of a PvP adventure.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no! All that and more. So let's start with the UI. So I'm gonna bring this up here, and Farhan, you're gonna be a little behind on the stream seeing this, but I'm gonna show the viewers a screenshot of the old UI. Yeah, the current UI. So we got everything kind of basically jammed into a pyramid, right down here at the bottom.
Yeah, that was probably the number one thing that's gotten bad feedback from for Carbine. Throughout the beta has just been like this, what is this thing at the bottom of my screen? And it doesn't even look that bad like in that specific picture, because he's zoomed out a decent amount. And to the
What the hell was that?
Okay.
Anyway.
So,
I'm assuming that was something in Gary's office.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
hopefully
sir.
everything's all right.
You were saying.
So in that specific photo, it's actually not as obviously bad because it's been, they zoomed out the camera a little bit so you can see everything. But specifically, like with the engineer, when you have like the pet bar stuff on top of the health bar, on top of the action bar, on top of the secondary action bar, on top of the other secondary action bar.
Right.
Almost lost all my breath. Like you just couldn't see anything. Like a lot of the time, if you played in a cave or something where you couldn't zoom out the camera very far, you couldn't see the bottom of your feet. It was just cut off by the UI. So
Yeah, I
That's
mean, the
definitely
chat
something that
panel
they've
is
been-
pretty standard. Lower left, we're kind of used
Yeah.
to that now. Lower left or upper left, usually in those two areas. I do like the sides, though, right? I mean, the sides are really clean. And that task
in the
panel,
current one?
in the current one, and the task panel opens up and slides up. But for the most part, I like that the sides are really clean. But I kind of agree with you. I hate this whole conglomeration of crap right in the middle of the screen, right at the bottom, taking up a huge portion of what's going on. And we weren't the only ones that didn't like it, apparently, because Carbine decided, all right, let's do a new one. So let's take a look at a new one here. Let me pull this up for you right here. All right, same visual, but now we've got our new UI, Farhan. What are you thinking here? A little spread out now, using kind of the entire bottom of the screen.
It's nice because, you know, essentially the entire like vertical height that it's taken up is down to where like just the secondary action bars were before, like where your potions used to be. And so basically, you know, in terms, like, you're right that the old UI had a lot of room on the sides that was available, but, you know, effectively speaking, how much of that do you actually use for actual in-game viewing, right? You want to look at the center of your screen for the most part. You have a little bit of peripheral vision, but yeah, so taking that down a little bit and making it so that everything is just sleek and nice at the bottom of the screen is just, it just looks so much cleaner, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree. But here's what's funny. The first time I looked at this, I instantly went, wow, that's the Old Republic's UI. I mean, it bears a striking resemblance to the default Old Republic UI with the unit frames on the left and right just above the action bar, kind of tucked in there at the top. I'm not bitching, though. I like the new UI. Let's take a look. You know, maybe this is a little hard to see for some people here. So let's take a look at these with whoops, I just cut your frame. Let's do these side by side here. I mean, that just looks a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
To your point, at the foot room there, that it's so much easier to see the telegraph at a player's foot.
It is, definitely. And that's probably like the #1 improvement for, I mean, like if you were a melee character, just thinking about it, like you couldn't see part of your own telegraph attack.
Yeah.
Because like the UI would be covering up part of it. So it's just really nice that it's cleaned up, it's been spread out a little bit. And again, you know, like even if you don't for some reason like some of this stuff, remember everything is fully moddable. So you could and probably will end up changing a lot of it too anyway, but it's really nice that the default UI is getting a nice, you know, workup and improving so much.
In case you're unsure of what's where here, chat, here's your labels. Same thing with the bunch of pretty labels. Yes, dodge and innate abilities, it's all there.
I think the point of this photo is just to show that, like, even though that they've sort of tried to slim it down a little bit, all the information is still there that they used to be able to provide. And this is still probably the most crowded that it could possibly get. You know, like someone in chat room, Colored Toad is saying, yeah, you can turn off those secondary action bars on the left and the right. And they did put in some neat stuff, like in the bottom corner, bottom left corner, they have like a little mount thing. So with a little pop out, so you have like this little drawer that opens up when you would click on it, and you'd be able to choose which mount you want to be on there. So it's all just neatly in there. You can do that. They also have a potions tab, like you can like slot in multiple potions into that one, and then have whichever one you want to be available. So it's nice because it means that I don't have to have like 5 action bar slots just dedicated to the different potions I have. I could say like maybe, you know, this one is like my priority 1 potion, then that one's the next one or whatever, and switch it around like that. And also, again, this is the engineer who has the most UI elements you could possibly imagine.
Exactly. So it's extra crowded in this case.
Yeah.
But not only that, you had already mentioned it, that it's still fully customizable. If you want to stack it all in the middle of the pyramid, fine, go ahead. I don't know why the hell you would do it, but if you want to, if you really want to,
put it in the middle. You can just cover up your character.
You know what? You don't need to see your character. Just a bunch of vertical hotbars. You'll be fine. It's no problem. So
have a little HUD thing.
Does this mean the chat is kind of going to be in the usual default space, lower left still? Just maybe
I think so. That is
additional bar.
That is one thing that I was curious about, because like my first question when I actually saw the photo is, you know, where is the path UI now? Because they have like a little button that's labeled Datacron, which is, you know, what they call like the little communicator thing that so you can phone home and do stuff. But I don't see like the giant blocks, which is nice because I hated the giant path blocks, and it'd be really nice to see if that got a workup or where that ends up being. I assume that the quest tracker is still going to be in the bottom right, in the chat it's going to be in the bottom left by default. But that was already movable anyway. So
yeah, the one thing I'm really curious about here, looking at this, and I'm looking at it at a second monitor. Forgive me for not looking at the camera chat. I'm sorry. The one thing I am curious about, though, being more of the PvE guy, is I want to see the raid frames now. With these changes, I want to see the party and raid frames and what modifications they've made to those, if any.
Yeah, the raid frames could use a little bit of love. They are a little bit plain. Right now, what you can do in terms of if you get into like a PvP group, you'll see it because whenever you go into a battleground, you're in a de facto raid, right? It's bigger than 5 people. You can sort of mark yourself like I'm a tank, I'm a healer, or I'm a DPS, and it'll phase it out. But since WildStar, like in World of Warcraft or Star Wars or other games, a raid is made up of a bunch of little groups. Right.
Yeah.
In WildStar, it's just you are in a raid group, so it's just like one big amalgamation, and it's a little bit hard to organize people into little strike teams, which I imagine will be a little bit messy in 40-mans. It'd be nice to be able to have that functionality. I'm not gonna say that I'm making an add-on for that, but
you didn't hear it here first. Hey, do you think, this is a pretty big revamp. We assume the game isn't that far away, and this is a pretty big revamp. Do you think this is maybe a big reason why the NDA is still in place? Because I know there's a lot, even I have kind of questioned, all right, maybe it's time to just drop it. You're already showing 1 through 15, and you're already getting into the dungeons, and so just, okay, adventures, we're getting into all that. I think this is probably a big reason why the NDA is still up, is because this bad boy isn't quite finalized yet.
Yeah, they've been saying for a long time now that our UI is very temporary. We're gonna get the new UI in soon. We're gonna get it in soon. We're gonna get it in soon. And I'm still waiting for it, right? Because even as a beta player, I can't. I don't have access to that yet. If you go and watch a stream, you see the current one. And so we're still just sort of chomping at the bit, waiting for that new UI to come in. That could be a big part of it, because that is a huge user experience improvement. If you improve the UI, then that's a lot, right? It makes the whole game just feel a lot better. It makes it play a lot better. I think that there's other reasons why maybe they haven't lifted the NDA yet, just because they really want to make sure that the first publicly disseminated information about the end game is this is really polished and nice and clean, and it's not just it's a buggy mess or whatever. So I think that is also probably a big reason. But I do think that we're coming close to that point where that NDA is going down.
Yeah, it's going to fall soon. I can't imagine it staying up for very much longer. I haven't seen anything about submenus though yet. If they're getting a revamp, like the inventory system, the skill system, any of that stuff, and that's changed so many times already. I remember getting my hands on this in May in San Francisco with Jeremy Gaffney and team out there, and it was totally different than it was when we got our hands on it 2 months ago, and which is totally different than it is today. Do you anticipate more menu changes as well? Those sub-menu activities, skills, and all that?
I would expect at least a unification of the general aesthetic, just because now you have the sort of sea greens, very sleek, very clean look, and instead of the big gunmetal sort of widgets everywhere kind of thing. So I would expect some sort of pass to at least clean that up. If they don't do that, that'd be a little bit weird to me. But yeah, I would expect so. Yeah, I think that the whole UI will probably end up doing it. And if you look at that screenshot of the new UI, I still feel like it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb, right? That mini map.
Yeah.
It's just sitting there, and it's so just plain and not, anything really going on with it. So there's still a lot of the UI that's going to get worked. That's why we don't have it yet as beta testers, because they're still working on it. They're still improving it. So.
Speaking of beta, a ton of keys went out last week, man. Boatloads of freaking beta keys. And that was another reason I was like, okay, why are we still doing the NDA then? This just seemed like everybody who's going to get in got in, right? The
Alienware giveaway was just amazing. I haven't heard You know, like I'm shocked because, you know, I've been like just, you know, reading Reddit and part of communities for a lot of the games that have gone through beta recently. Hearthstone, other Guild Wars 2 back in the day, like all these games. And almost every time that there's like one of these, you know, giveaway things that's like a partner with another website, it just is like there's like this vitriol from everyone who didn't get in.
Right.
And then like the Alienware one that just happened, everyone's like, yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. See you in game.
Because
like,
I mean,
everybody that wanted to get in, like, if
of
you're
having
not in
hours
now, I'm
to try to
sorry.
get your beta key.
Yeah.
The difference of having hours to get your beta key instead of seconds.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Oh,
Go
big
figure.
time. God mode underscore on Reddit said 100,000 keys were handed out in the last 2 weeks. Now, I don't know about you, Farhan, but everything I read on the internet, I take as absolute truth.
He must have a source.
Yeah,
he wouldn't just say that.
Yeah, 100,000 is that's probably the exact number that they gave out. But he does bring a big point that we've already talked about. With that many people being added to the game, with that many people being added to the game, why have an NDA at all? Oh, that's awesome. So 100,000 is the...
it's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a great question. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. Moving on.
I'm sure it'll drop soon.
Right.
It's just a matter of time. You're right. With all these beta keys going out, I mean, like, how far can you get in a weekend? Anyway, you're not going to get to like level 40 in a weekend. I hope not, anyway. For your own health, don't try to do it.
Yeah, please don't. A few interesting tidbits came out of the Adventures AMA on Reddit. Now, you guys talked about the MOBA-style adventure in particular I was going to say last week, but it was like last show.
2 weeks.
Well, you know, just last show. What you guys didn't talk about, and I wanted to bring up, was the possibility of that kind of maybe turning into potentially PvP.
Ooh.
I hear the internet's like the MOBAs. That's what the kids are playing.
That is
these
what the
days.
kids like.
That's what the kids like to play these days. They kind of just left it at a big hint, right? Then they were just like, hey, well, if enough players want to see it, then okay. Which is kind of like their de facto answer, right?
Yeah, right. You know, it's the safest answer to give without saying, no, we're not going to do it. And then other people will be like, well, you said you wouldn't do it, and now you are. So... I don't know. Like, I think that a lot of people like the idea of having like a MOBA PvP battleground or whatever that you could go through, but I think that it's really risky, honestly, just because, you know, like I'm a person who likes to do a lot of PvP. I like to do a lot of arenas and battlegrounds, especially, and you don't want to actually design a PvP battleground to the extent where it no longer feels like PvP anymore. Right? You don't want to take it away from the combat systems, the regular things. If you add too much extra stuff on, then it's like it's a whole different game. And how do you balance that in with everything else and everything? It just becomes such a weird experience that the community doesn't even feel consistent anymore. Like if I click random battleground and I end up in the MOBA, that's such a different experience from the other thing, right?
Well, the whole Adventures preview, and I wasn't on the last show, but the whole Adventures preview was such like an up and down roller coaster of emotion for me, because like they were like, here's what adventures are, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome, because I'm a big PvE guy, you know, not generally PvP. I enjoy it, just not good at it. So it's like, oh, these are going to be awesome. That's great. You know, it's not the same thing every time. Oh, we're also doing a MOBA one, and my heart went, oh shit. Oh, damn it.
It's pretty fun though. It's pretty fun.
Terrible. But then they were like, oh, by the way, it's a PvE MOBA, and I was like, oh, great. Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, I'm back on board. And now all the questions are like, can we do it PvP? And all of a sudden I'm like, ah, crap. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want it. The kids, they like the MOBAs. I don't know. I don't see a reason why
I don't
they
see it happening,
and you don't see it happening? Really?
No, because I feel like it would be too much of a departure from regular
battlegrounds.
battlegrounds.
Enough people asked.
If enough people ask for ponies, they might get ponies.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I think this gets added.
Really?
Yeah, simply because there's gonna be enough people that once they play the PvE portion of it, if it plays well and executes well, they're definitely gonna want to go against other players.
I mean, it's fun, but the thing is, I feel like it's such a departure from the normal combat experience, like the way that the other battlegrounds work. That they're very much WildStar combat, right? They're telegraph combat.
Oh yeah.
They have objectives in there, but the objectives serve to direct the combat, right? You have like the mass carrier, and that is like attracting people to come there and fight over the objective rather than it being sort of like, okay, I'm pushed in a lane with a bunch of mobs and I'm trying to buff the mob or protect them or, doing that kind of thing. It's just very, very much different. And I feel like their PvP team, I mean, I don't know, maybe they'll go with it. I just feel like I would rather have more battlegrounds that actually encourage the normal combat experience, because I like the combat experience.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people who like PvP and WildStar like it because of how good the combat is, and I don't want to see a battleground that takes away from that.
Yeah, I can understand it, but I think I can also see this as like a different queue. It's not part of like the rated experience, maybe.
But the problem with that is
we're gonna go head to head on this one, and I'm gonna be the one that's right.
Just go to that though about it being a different queue, just because this is exactly the reason why ArenaNet didn't put in tons of game modes for structured PvP and Guild Wars 2, is because it splits the community. That now you have half as many people queuing into each game mode, which means that it slows queue times, it does all this other stuff. So I don't see them splitting the queue, definitely. Maybe it'll go in, but I don't think it'd be a split queue.
I can agree. I can at least agree with that much. I think this is going in at some point as PvE. We're going to keep talking about PvE, but before we move on, I want to talk to you about one of our sponsors here. That would not be the right screen. Nice. See, this is what happens when you drop somebody in the middle of a of a show. Drop their camera. Sponsors Audible. If you've never had any experience with Audible, you need to check it out, especially if you're big on the books. I've pulled up Ender's Game because I just finally watched this movie today. I know I'm a little behind on this one. I was not really in a hurry to watch it because I was worried about how they would ruin the book for me. It's okay movie, much better book. If you like the movie, check out the book. Audible.com's got it for you right here. Happy to have them as a sponsor. It's also part of their WhisperSync Voice Ready. If you've got Ender's Game on your Kindle, you can read it on your Kindle, and if you have this, any books that have the WhisperSync feature allow you to automatically switch it to the Audible voice reading at any time to pick up right where you are, so you can set it down while you make dinner, but don't have to stop reading. When you're done making dinner, you can carry on right back to the sofa, shut off Audible, and keep reading on the Kindle right where you were. So great feature. Audible.com, so happy to have them as a sponsor. For your 30-day free trial, head on over to audible.com/GameBreaker. You use that URL when you get there. Not only are you going to get the 30 days free, but you can also go and get yourself a free book such as Ender's Game, the special 20th anniversary edition. So, are they gonna?
That's
you know
actually
what? If Audible
app.
starts, yeah, it's an awesome app.
That WhisperSync thing,
Yep.
like I've done so many times where I'm like listening to it on the thing, and I want to actually start reading it normally or doing something, and I'm just like, then I have to find my place in the MP3 or whatever that I was listening to. That's actually amazing.
Definitely a great app, and see, but I'm a little concerned here. I mean, this says 20th anniversary edition. That just seems to me like Audible's going to start selling collector's editions at some point, and if they do, I'm screwed because I'm a sucker for the collector's editions. But if you want to check it out for free, 30 days, audible.com/GameBreaker. Gary spoke to you earlier about the donation site. If donating is something you just can't do or are not inclined to do at the moment, totally understand. There's other ways you can support GameBreaker. Supporting our sponsors is one of those ways. Check it out. Moving on with the PvP, we talked about the MOBA experience, and we're split on this one. I think at some point they're going to add it. You think they don't. What about the other modes? Tower defense, we've seen the Oregon Trail. There's definitely potentials there, aren't there?
I feel like the MOBA one would be the most obvious one to actually do.
Oh, yeah.
So if they passed over the MOBA and said, let's do Tower D PvP, blow my mind. It's like, what is going on?
And suddenly the internet makes even less sense. The trick, though, is going to have to be making it fun for both sides, which is, I think, a bit challenging in some of the modes they've created here. There's distinct advantages. MOBAs, I don't know. I just see MOBA being, that's a no-brainer. The everything else, I think they're going to stick to PvE. I think only MOBA is going to be the one they go PvP. and you think none of them. So we're not allowed to be friends anymore.
It might happen. It might happen. I just don't think that they should.
So check this out. In other news, Carbine didn't want players to actually figure out the fastest or easiest path through the adventures and never deviate from it, which totally makes sense from a development standpoint, right? You don't want
you want everyone to see all your content.
Yeah, you don't want there to be that path of least resistance. Let's skip these two bosses because they don't have crap and just go this way and do this thing. So each boss has a set loot table. And that means if you want all the gear, you're going to have to do a little bit of everything.
Yep. I think it makes sense, especially because, you know, like they said in the Adventures live stream, they just sort of mentioned in passing as one of the questions that was asked on chat, like, are they going to gate like the veteran thing so you can only do it once a day or whatever? It's like, no, you can do it as much as you want. It's like, okay, well, then you definitely need to make sure that there's not one path that everyone chooses every single time through the adventure. Otherwise, but we did see some differences in there, like in the adventure live stream, they were showing the tower defense map. That wasn't a choice thing, right? That was just like a random which, you know, if they were playing as Exile, so which Dominion faction was attacking at which point in the game. So, you know, they showed like the Esper boss at the end was like really, really hard for them to beat. And they said that, well, if that was the first one that you were going to fight, it could happen that maybe next time they're the first one, they're a cakewalk because you have your morale at top. So, I mean, there's a little bit of flexibility beyond just which path you take because of the loot.
Just because it's loot driven, right?
Yeah, and with the Oregon Trail example that they gave, they said that maybe one time you go through, there's a random event so that your caravan has less food, so you want to go through the safari so that you can hunt animals for more food or something like that. Whereas maybe another time you have a water shortage, and so you want to go.
And that's kind of the downside of this, though, is the whole looking for groups.
It is.
You know, an Oregon Trail Path 2 immediately flags in the brain there as maybe not gonna work as intended.
For the loot, it's like I know, and I think that's the thing that they've been struggling with the most with adventures, because you know if you watch one of the streams of one of the adventures, you'll see that in the current build that we have, it's different from what they had in the live stream. In the live stream, they had loot dropping and they were rolling on it just like a normal dungeon, just like any other experience. But in right now, there's like this reputation grind that like you have to do it, and then they didn't want to even make it, and a lot of people were like, why don't I get any reputation or any significant reputation or experience or gold unless I complete the adventure? If I go halfway through and then the group falls apart or whatever, I almost got nothing.
Exactly.
And like from a developer standpoint, it's because they don't want you to pick the first one and then be done and then be like, okay, that was the most efficient way to get reputation, and let's just quit out, reset the instance, and go back in.
Again.
But it sucks when your group falls apart because the tank had to leave.
I mean, it obviously would have been easier to use like a loot token system, of course. You know, gather up X number of justice points or tomestones of mythology. Pick your game of choice. It obviously would have been easier for the groups, but every other game in the world's doing that, right? And Carbine's desperately trying to be not every other game. So I'm really interested in how this one pans out. Like I said, I'm a huge PvE guy, so the adventures right now are kind of just right up my alley. I'm looking forward to them, but I need to see the rest of this play out, particularly the loot system. There's always going to be a fastest path, though, isn't there? I mean,
that was the point. As long as we're
talking about MMOs, and you know, the internet doesn't. We don't like fun stuff. You know, we're just,
they want efficiency.
We don't want fun
content.
We're just jerks, and we want to roll through all of it, and then complain that the content wasn't. There was no content.
There wasn't enough.
There wasn't enough. There's gonna be a fastest path. There has to be, right? Unless the things are
but they just have to make it so
random.
that you want to actually do the harder path.
Yeah.
If they make it rewarding enough, then it'll be worth it. But just how are they going to do that? That's, you know, not sure.
Now, this is something that they've been talking about at Carbine for quite some time. Even, like, again, I reference May of last year, they talked about it. They did confirm that you'll have the option to scale down in level so that you can run around with your friends who may be lower level. Pretty standard, but obviously good to hear. Now, if I remember right, Jeremy Gaffney told us in May that you will be able to do that for dungeons, too. But I don't know if that still stands, or if that was ever really something they talked about, he was just thinking about at the time. Any news? I haven't really seen it too much on it since then.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. The default, if you like queue in through the group finder, you're gonna get scaled down. If you use the group finder at all, I'm pretty sure, like 90% sure, that if you use a group finder, you are scaled down. You are at the level of the instance.
Now,
if you
I seem
walk
to remember
in, you have
Jeremy
the option.
talking. Yeah, that's it. I was going to say, I seem to remember Jeremy talking about having the ability to steamroll through it for your friend or drop down to your friend's level and actually make it level appropriate.
They just make you walk into the instance if you want to do it that way. I mean, I think it makes sense just because if you're going to use the group finder queuing thing, you don't want to be like, okay, I want to get a lot of experience from doing it. Maybe I don't need the loot. And then like some level 50 is in the group and you're like, what? Where'd my experience go?
Can we do this in open world too? Like a la Guild Wars 2? Well,
you can.
Guild
you
Wars
have
2
full control.
forces you into it, but I think WildStar is going to give you a little more flexibility and control.
In WildStar, you right-click on their name and you say, I want to mentor down to his level, and then you get experience exactly as if you were their level. It's great. Like I love mentoring down. Whenever I skip some quest or whatever, I just like, hey, you're the right level. I don't want to do this quest without getting my experience reward. Let me just mentor down to your level, and then go do it.
So if you haven't been in WildStar yet, very similar to Rift, where you can click the portrait and mentor down a level. Veteran adventures and veteran dungeons, something I'm super excited for. I always like the hard mode stuff. They're gonna grant items of similar quality. So if the number of endgame's dungeon looks kind of low, which at the moment it does. Again, still we don't know release date, so there could be more added. Tack on some more adventures. Woohoo!
Yep. So, I mean, even if there are only 4 dungeons in there, you still got 4 more adventures that would be scalable up. I believe that those are the correct numbers. I might be like slipping my mind on it. I know that the very first 2 adventures that you can do that are like Dominion only or Exile only, I'm pretty sure that they said that those aren't going to have veteran modes. But for the rest of it, you know, everything will be veteranizable.
Veteran. It is subject to veteranizing.
Yes.
But here's the cool thing, and Final Fantasy XIV does this very well. It only has 2 hard mode dungeons right now, but we expect this same type of thing in WildStar, where it's not just boss hits harder and has more HP equals veteran mode. It's new bosses, old bosses with different mechanics. We're expecting a lot of variety there.
Adventures definitely seem like the one of the biggest places that they could just be like, let's add a new path into veteran mode. That's really
Adventures also seems like the way they're like, you know, what'd be really cool is this experience here, this story here, but it totally doesn't frickin' fit our lore. Boom, adventure.
Because it was just a hologram, you know, holodeck, whatever you want to call it.
Exactly, and it's great to have a little feature like that.
It is.
The devs have been talking up their plans for the future. We've seen the live stream. All in all, I want you to rate it 1 through 10. What are you thinking about adventures? Are you looking forward to them or what?
In terms of gameplay, I would rate it like an 8. And in terms of loot, right now, it's like a 4. But maybe it'll improve. I haven't actually gotten a chance to play it with drops, so. I know that they are planning on changing because we saw it in the live stream. We saw drops, so maybe that'll make it a lot more fun for loot.
I'm gonna go 8.1. Telegraphing,
topping me.
Yeah.
This price is right.
Oh, those jerks! I freaking hate that. What's the high bid? 900? 901, Drew.
1.
You son of a. Telegraph healing and 40-man content last on the docket for today because I'm actually really excited about possibly having a healer as my main in
sweet.
In WildStar. Usually I go tank as the first one and then a range DPS, but I'm really thinking about going healing because I like where I think this is headed. Oski on Reddit raised some interesting concerns about healing, said telegraphs mean moving around. Moving around means kind of harder to heal, and targeting gets a little more challenging. So when you kind of compare that to other MMO games, it sounds like, on the 40-man front especially, healing can be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like. I kind of like.
You want the additional difficulty. You are the awesome healer that every group wants. And
no, I suck at it, but that's okay, right? No, I'm terrible at it, but I'll be great at it in WildStar, I'm sure.
Definitely.
But I like
see it.
I see it now. I like the difference of, and this is why I very rarely play healers. I have one on a few other games, but I very rarely play them. I don't like the play style of run into the middle, make sure everybody's in range, and cast away. You know,
yeah.
Oh no, the tank moved. I've got to take half a step forward. They're back in range again. Okay, great. I like the idea.
And then just looking at the health bars the whole time instead of actually seeing where anyone's position. Like I played a healing role in Vanilla Warcraft when I was doing raiding, like Molten Core all the way through Next Ramus, and I was just healing, and like all the time, you know, I was like an officer in the chat, and we'd be discussing like what went wrong, and I'd be like, I have no idea. I was looking at health bars. I don't know where anyone's standing. That guy's health went down, I can tell you that, but yeah.
What happened? HP reached 0.
That's all I know.
But we're expecting, so here's the delicate balance portion of this, though. I mean, we're expecting, and a lot of us are hoping for, since we kind of feel that WildStar is going to be a little more niche in the audience that it picks up, we're expecting raiding to be a bit on the harder side when compared to other MMOs. And now you have healers having to deal with telegraphs and movement and frantically looking between the raid bars, and I don't know. I'm kind of nervous. I want to do it, though. I'm going to fail at it, but that's okay.
The thing is, though, that's something you run into in the very first experience of doing healing. Like at that level 20 dungeon, it's most likely, like maybe if you do the 15 adventure right away, then you'll see that. But the thing is that I think groups pretty quickly realize that they have to play differently in WildStar. You know, like if you're a ranged DPS and you're just used to doing your own thing at max range the whole time or whatever, like WildStar can be a little bit of like a, you know, very just jarring experience because your healer's like, hey, get in between me and the tank so that my heals will hit you. You know.
Yeah, and I haven't done any of the 40-man raiding content in the game, you know, at all. So I'm not speaking from experience here. I'm speaking from everything we've seen and heard. We think that the raids are going to be geared to be a little harder. It sounds like the healers are going to have to move a lot. Now, if you're able to bypass that through clever stacking and stuff, well, then the point's kind of moot, right? There's going to have to be a drive to get everybody separated and apart from each other. They also said, but they'll be making use of every single person in the 40-man. It's not going to be like just this Zerg charge. So that kind of tells me that at some points we're going to be splitting off into the groups you mentioned earlier, which the UI isn't really built for, but hopefully will be. And maybe things get a little more flexible at that point. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. Are you more, you know, you and I don't really talk about it. Are you more PvP or PvE?
I do a lot of
You got to pick one. No, you got to pick
I got to pick
one.
Well, I guess the thing is that in each game I sort of figure out which one I like more, and then I go with that. Like in Warcraft, I liked PvE a lot more than PvP. I mean, Warcraft and PvP was good, but I was, you know, a hardcore raider at the time. And in Star Wars, I played PvP.
So what do you think in WildStar so far?
WildStar so far. If I have to pick one,
you only got to pick one, and that's you can only play that for the next month.
The next month.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go with PvE then.
Awesome.
Yeah. There we go.
You know him.
PvP got just like shot down, but it's all right. I'll make it up by killing you.
Which you will do repeatedly. You heard it here first. He loves the PvE. That's Farhan Siddiqui. You can follow him on the Twitters. That's at Unindel, UNINDEL. Thank you so much for joining me this week, sir. Remember, chat, we will see you next week, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific. That's the new Unicorn Duck Shadow Puppet time. I'm Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter right there, at MagicMan1, MAGICKMANN1. You've been watching GameBreaker TV. Check out the donate page. Stay safe, and we'll see you out on the servers.
GameBreaker TV.